gosh, that's a lot of keys, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And you know why? They're all out, kind of on display there, ready for my walk around the yard to show you what cars are still here and what cars aren't here. Obviously, anything that's not here doesn't have any keys. Let's introduce this video. These update videos are here specifically for anybody who's really interested in what's going on in the Project Nigel headquarters yard, but not interested enough to actually watch the videos in the first place. Also, for anyone who just wants a more leisurely walk around the yard, a video that's never edited, not properly anyway. It never used to be, and it still isn't edited in quite the way I normally edit my other videos. Here goes. I try and do these ever so slightly different every time, so this time what I'm going to do is randomly pick 3 sets of keys and do those cars first. Oh. Oh. And these are the keys for the first car we're going to. As you can see, there's quite a collection just there, more than just 1 or 2. But what car is it for? Well, the keyring does kind of give it away a little bit, and it means I'm going to start right at the back of the yard to start with this car, the Rover 45 MG ZS called Ronda. I know of one person who really likes this car and would probably dearly like to see it on the road again. Although I don't believe it's going to need a massive amount of work for its MOT, there have been other things to do. So, well, and the other thing is stuff like this. It's not really going to be the most appealing car for many people, which is why it probably would make sense just to take it apart. But of course, I don't like taking cars apart if I can help it. Just about opening there. Well, here I am in the MG ZS 45 Rover with its half leather red MG seats, which I must say are quite nice. And I must also say that it's been okay. It's not gone mouldy inside, it doesn't smell, which is always a good sign. But there's no way this car is going to start. No, but it won't do while it's doing that anyway. Or that, but yeah, that familiar sound. It is fairly obvious, so I've got to get some more batteries on charge. Like this one. That's not its original battery. Anyway, this car I did put up for sale as it is because I'd prefer somebody else just to take it on and do something with it rather than me take it apart. But nobody's been that serious about buying it so far, so it's still here. What next? There's the key, and as you can tell, that's not the kind of key you have in a more modern Rover, although there's no such thing as a proper modern Rover. And here we have it, a big thing underneath the cover there with a couple of tyres to stop the cover from blowing off. And underneath we have a red Rover 800 on an L-Reg. Oh wow, now this is a real punishment being sat in here because this is incredibly hot, even though it's covered up. What's the plan for this car? I don't know, it's not mine. I do clearly need to make a plan with this car though, because well, it's taking up a big sized car space just there, and my other plan was for this area to be all covered up with a massive tarp so I can store some outdoor parts without them going rusty. So I don't know what's happening with that next, because it doesn't work. That makes it difficult to move around. Next, this. As you can see, that looks a bit more like a Vauxhall key or something like that, which is clearly not an original key at all. This car is not mine. It is Boaty's Tour Estate. No fob, just a key. I actually really like this one. In fact, out of all of his cars, I think this is the one I like the best. And do you know why? It's a tourer, that's why. They did make a very nice touring car. And I don't mind this car being here because it works. And a working car is easier to move around than a non-working car. So the plan is with this one, it's going to just get MOT, then he's going to take it back and probably bring something else along for me to not really do any work on. I mean, I'd like to do some more work on these cars, but I haven't done any so far, so I'd like to continue the tradition as well. And now another random selection of 3 keys. That was the workshop keys. Okay, next then, here we have these keys here, which are the keys for a Rover 45 called Rhiannon. And that is this car. At a glance you might think it's Project Alfie, until you look and see the colour slightly different, and of course it's got a hatch rather than a boot, plus it's got MG wheels on. Then when you, hang on, oh, that was already, I didn't mean to leave that one open actually. Inside the car you can see straight away it is a Project Drive car. It is a Project Drive car. Even though it's a Mark 1, you can see straight away by these seats, by this carpet, and by the lack of trimmings on the door. The old ones have wood cappings, don't they? But beyond that, it's quite a nice little car. It's just got a few issues to deal with, such as an exceedingly clunky suspension and a bit of a problem with it not running on all 4 cylinders all of the time. And then a bit of a coolant leak, a cracked expansion bottle, and it did have a starter motor issue. But now, it most definitely doesn't. Now this car isn't mine. I mean, I've kind of claimed it a little bit, you could say, and it is in my yard, and I am doing some work on it. But there's a top secret deal going on with this car that I'm not obliged to tell anyone about. So, you know, everything else is top secret. But there will be more videos on this one soon. Come on, I think that battery's a bit weak on there. Let's try the other one. That's it, thank you. Now the next key is this, and that is Benny Jazz Mags, which is quite conveniently only there, which means I don't have to walk up the other end of the yard to get to it. Benny Jazz Mags is a car that kind of has everything. It's an MG ZR. It's in ignition blue, which is an amazing colour. It's a 1.8, which is brilliant because people want them. It means it's got discs on the back. It's a highly sought after car, and I bought it to sell. Yet it's still here over a month later. Why is that? Well, there are a few factors involved in this, of which I shall just go through right now. Last month I put this car up for sale and it got interest straight away. But then I got let down. And you'd think that'd be a bad thing, but turns out it was a very good thing. Because I used it myself. And you'd think that was a good thing, but it turned out to be not quite as interesting as I was expecting. I discovered that although this is a great little car, I just don't think the MG ZR is for me. It's just too bumpy and rattly and a hard ride for everyday use. And then of course the head suddenly failed on it. Everything was okay, then within an instant all of the coolant was in the oil completely milkshake, so it had to go some surgery. I should start the car up so you can hear how easily it starts and how eager it is to start. Very soon there shall be a no-nonsense sales pitch video for this car. And again, this should be quite a good thing because this car, after all, now has a relatively new MOT. It has only 65,000 miles. It's a 1.8. It's had a brand new head gasket put in with new bolts, a new water pump, a new cam belt, and new coolant and new oil. It's all very good, isn't it? Except for just one thing, and that is that it looks like it needs a wheel bearing on the near side front, because it's making a kind of a funny wobbly noise, and the wheel bearing is the only explanation. The next car is again another one that's covered up, and it's just been living here doing very, very little indeed. And when I say doing very little, I mean doing nothing. The car under here, if you remember, is a Rover SD1, which was a barn find. Barn find stood for 30 years, so it's not in tip-top condition, and it's resting in the yard whilst either lots and lots of funds are put together to do a restoration on this job, or just, you know, as a yard ornament. Either way, I'm not really too worried about it. But yet again, in a whole month, I've not looked at this car. I've not seen if there's anything going on inside. And that means, of course, underneath this green exterior could be someone living in there. I wouldn't know. Some believe that Michael Jackson is alive and well, and that he's living inside this Rover SD1. So I'm about to find out whether this is true or not. Well, he's definitely not in the front. Ooh, it's hot in here, indeed it is. It's unbelievably hot. Another greenhouse. If only it wasn't covered up, we could grow some tomatoes in here. Do you know what, actually? I'm gonna have a little chat about this car, because it's odd. It smells quite nice if you like the smell of farms and things like that, but it has quite a pleasant old car smell about it. I must feel like coming in here a bit more often. Anyway, he's not in there, so to my mind he probably isn't alive after all. Well, as I chose the keys for the lockup, why don't I tell you about the differences that are going on in here? And it's a bit difficult to know where to start, really, because I don't think there are any. It's still a mess. Currently it's in between tidy ups, because tidy ups are boring. Tony and the Bandit is still up there. Renault 20 advert's still there. That plastic keyboard's still there. My drying towel's still there. My bike over there, unfortunately not had the use I was expecting to give it. I can't remember where these MGF parts were here. There's some more wheels here than last time, and there's a cylinder head on top of a grey trolley called Mr. Mitch. This trolley was kindly donated by a man who took pity on me for breaking my old trolley, and he just gave me this brand new one. I like nice people. Over here, the gazebo finally had some use. I used it a couple of times to shelter from the rain and shine, which was good. Then over here, this has stopped working. It won't just go on. So that means that all this cable here is now a complete waste of time, which is a pity because I've spent ages doing that. Fridge still works, and in the fridge still lots of Rover 25 filler flaps and a t-shirt. It was never my intention on this channel to show any kind of nudity, but here is my t-shirt that's been in the freezer, having soaked it in water first, so it's going to look kind of strange to start with, but gosh, that's nice and cold. Oh yes, that's much more like it. And now another 3 sets of keys. What have we got? Well, what we have is transit piece, which has moved around the yard a little bit in the past month, but that's it, because unfortunately the MOT's run out and it's going to need something doing with this door. for it to work, because it doesn't. I'm reasonably sure a door that doesn't open is going to be an MOT failure. But besides that, it all seems to be still okay. In fact, perhaps we should see if it'll start, because it has been a while. It does like to start, this thing. Thank you. What can I say about it though? It's just not been used. It's not, I'm not sure I actually need it, because I don't really see my future in messing around with cars that don't work. I prefer ones that do work, or at least mostly work. I don't really want a yard full of scrap. It's just not me. And it's because of that why this thing is still here. Before long it's going to start being taken over, and the problem is getting to it at the moment, because I need a serious bit of gardening going on there, because these spiky gits are taking over. Horrible spiky bits with fruit on. The trouble is with this car is it doesn't run as it should do. It runs lumpy. Other than that, it starts. It just has an awful lot of vibration going on, which isn't particularly nice. So this car was indeed also put up as a sort of project, spares repair. I could take it apart. There's plenty of parts on there that somebody would want, but I prefer not to have that responsibility and let it go to someone who's going to do something with it. But so far, nothing. I can wait. The next car is another R8, which has been slowly but surely coming apart. And in the last video I went through the parts that have come off of it, which were the headlamps, the detachment of the front bumper and the lowering of the engine, and the removal of the disc brakes on the front. But since then, oh no, those were off as well, I remember, and so was the sunroof. But what else? Oh, I started to remove the radio, then I found out it wasn't the correct one. There we can see the steering column has gone. Yes, that went to Wendy. Then we have the tailgate off, but not off. And that was to remove the tailgate. And since then it's just been, well, just a bit of a junkyard, to be honest. But look, I found a screwdriver. That makes everything fine. What we do have missing though is that door and that handle, and of course the indicators. Not big things, but I do just like the idea of having this thing here and it just disappearing gradually but surely, with all the parts just eventually going until there really isn't anything left but a shell. At that point, then there's no point in keeping it. But for the moment, if it can just keep parts on it, it can be stored exactly there. I don't have to rush to do anything. People know it's there. If they want something off of it, they can come and take it with my permission. Next we have the Rover 600, known as Harry Seacombe, and I have to admit I've done absolutely nothing with this car either. That's the wrong key. Nothing at all, besides occasionally coming and sitting inside it and wishing it was working and wishing that it was a viable thing to make it work. Well, I mean, it still might be, but you see, the thing is, I really have a proper soft spot for the 600, and I missed the one I used to have. Remember the one called George? And this one wouldn't really quite replace it because it's not as nice. But there's not many options left. Anyway, currently the battery's flat on it, so I couldn't start it even if it did work. The next motor we have to talk about is this one. Brian Johnson. Still here, still in the yard. Oddly enough, this one's not incredibly hot in here. But then again, this area of the yard is reasonably well shaded. This car, of course, I used it a few weeks, well actually a couple of months back now, come to think of it, as my daily car. And I didn't care for it massively. The Rover 25 is a car I like because it's humble and it's good. And that's where this one falls down, because it's trying to be clever, having rear electric windows that doesn't need, having leather seats, which it's not the best quality leather on the facelift cars anyway, and being silver. Now for me, being silver is a minus point, but for somebody else it's a plus point, and that's why this car is probably going to end up being bought by a man who looks like Jeremy Clarkson. Although I'm not really bothered about this car resting in the yard, so to speak. I don't mind. I will be pleased to see it find a new home. Here we have something that isn't of interest, which is a Seat Ibiza, which belongs to my friend called Carl, and hopefully he'll come off holiday or whatever it is he's doing and can take it away and do something useful with it. Obviously Carl is a lovely chap, and I'm always happy to accommodate something like this for him. I just wish it was a bit more interesting, because if this was a nice car I'd like to look at it, but to my mind these are not nice cars. Okay, just before we get to the car now known as second in command, let's have a look at this one. This is a Renault Clio, and as somebody pointed out to me, why is it being scrapped? Why is it going to be taken apart? Because that seems to be the only way to do anything with this car. Although these Clios are very popular, sought after and quite good cars, and this one starts easily enough and has a second steering wheel, which makes it good for driving school use. It has unfortunately been a bit battered about. The MOT's run out on it, which is one thing, that's not such a big deal, but it's just a bit scruffy everywhere, and it's had a proper good knock on the front. The kind of knock that means it can no longer drive in a straight line. That makes it dangerous. That's an awful lot of work to be done there. Plus the clutch is slipping as well. And I think there's a bunch of other things as well, including it's smelling a bit doggy. So I'm afraid it's a no-go car. I think they're having a barbecue over there. This time last month it was a very hot day, and that car, Alfie, was parked there, come to think of it. Or was it parked? No, it might have been parked just here. Anyway, I was talking about it and I climbed in just to check that the battery was good enough to start the car, and it was. And then I tried the aircon and it worked. And I had a sudden feeling of urge to drive it again. Not that I'd lost interest in this car at all. I never lost interest in this car. I love this car. This car is fantastic. Just because I've got it for sale doesn't mean I want to get rid of it, because I don't want to get rid of it. But I would at a price. And so, halfway through last month, when Benny Jazzmags decided that it definitely had a head gasket failure, I had to move on to this one. So that meant taxing that one as well. And do you know what? I just didn't really mind. Then the following month came along, the beginning of August, and I knew for definite that I wanted to carry on driving it. And every time I do drive it, I just really enjoy it. It is a wonderful car indeed. So, unless I get offered that kind of money that I'm after for this car, it's going nowhere. I've got a nice car here, and I intend on keeping it. And I intend on keeping that hat there, because it just looks cool in the back of a 45. I have even considered taking this car to some car shows as well, because it is a bit older than Nigel, and it's certainly, pretty much from every corner you look at it, spot on. And now of course it is time for the star of the show, which is Nigel, the undisputed star of the show, and probably any show, come to think of it. Now what's that on there? I seem to have got some dirty stuff. What is that all about? I have to clean that off. Believe it or not, this car does actually need a wash. I say believe it or not because it was only a few days ago when I last did one. That's what seems to happen in this incredibly dirty yard. A car that I want to look spotless has got no chance whilst living here. There's my vehicle pass, still there from the Gaydon Classic Car Show, and I just like it being there. It makes it look like it's a bit special, but then it is a bit special, isn't it? In fact, it's a lot special. And the sad thing has been that it's not been to as many car shows as I was anticipating. I wanted to take it to, what's it called? Oh yeah, the Festival of the Unexceptional. And then I was really disappointed to find out I couldn't go because it was too new. And then the next day I was even more disappointed when I found out there were cars there the same age as this, but obviously not as interesting. My plan is to give this car a wash today because it's got a rather special trip tomorrow. And that special trip is to go and see someone who's going to drive it. And this person is much, much better known than I am. And obviously I'm hoping to use this as an opportunity to bring some more traffic the direction of Project Nigel and the car. There really can't be many Rovers in the UK that are better known than this one, and certainly not Rover 25s, and I'd like that trend to keep on going upwards. So of course this car has continued to please and amuse me. The only bit I'm not happy with still is the headlining, which at some point I will get around to doing something about. But as well, if you've been watching, you'll know that this car was sicking just a few days back, and I spent the whole day stripping out the interior and cleaning it with a wet and dry vacuum cleaner. And now it is practically spotless everywhere as well. Well, it's got a few new bits of carpet fluff going on, but really nothing to go on about, I would say. Anyway, before the end of this video, I need to talk about the stuff that's no longer here. Well, there was a brief moment where there was another R8 in the yard that wasn't mine, but it was left here because Max had gone, and this poor thing had to stay here for 2 weeks. And briefly I kept thinking it was Max, which was rather disappointing, but that's gone and I'm glad. But more importantly, more significant is Project Christine. That's gone. That has been sold. Not only has it been sold, but it's been repaired extensively. It's had a fortune spent on that car, and I'm very, very pleased that that's happened, because it was just sat in the yard doing nothing here. And now that's the end of this video. Nigel may well be the star of the show. Tonight I'm going home in Alfie.